Yo guys, Visionist Gen here, bringing you more Warzone content. In today's episode, we'll be bringing you the best areas to be landing in Rebirth Island, which will identify the best landing areas from the start of the game, but also as a regain spot for later in the game in case your initial start doesn't go quite as planned. So, on that note, let's get right into it. So first things first, if you're not already aware, I've made several best landing spot videos already on the channel for the Verdansk map since its return already, which are linked in the description below in case you guys are interested and play that big map, which made me think maybe it's worth making one for the Rebirth Island map, as I've been playing it a lot lately, and I know a lot of other players do it as well, and I'm sure there's loads of new or returning players who don't quite know where's best to land, or like myself, have noticed that certain areas are safer or more chaotic than they were in the past and have changed quite drastically. Now, notes to consider with landing spots are things like, are you going for a high kill game and ready for a chaotic start? Then the land in those hot spots, which I'll go over obviously in the video, rotation of the zone, the landing area, understanding the zone from the start of the game and where it's potentially going to end. These are also important factors to understand, although I appreciate Rebirth Island is a smaller map, so it's pretty obvious where roughly it's going to end each time. But also other things are safe spots, rotation areas, plane route, when to jump out of the plane and stuff like that. All of these factors will affect your start of the game and whether you're going to get lots of kills or have a safer or slower start to a game, depending on, of course, your playstyle. Now, as I mentioned, there's various factors which need to be considered. So when you're planning your landing spot, what I'll do is summarize all of the best landing areas in the map from my own experience and then break down the factors such as what to expect, is it a safe spot or a hot spot, why you should go there or why you shouldn't, how to rotate through the map and how to get more money and stuff like that, and safety reasons, and also just for high kill games, because for the most part that is kind of what I pursue. We like to go for as many high kill games as possible and of course winning games at the end of the day, because that is the best and most important thing when you're playing these maps. Now, when making this video, I did make a conscious effort to divide the areas in this list to provide, like I said, safe spots, hot spots, money spots, etc., to cater to all different styles of player, as well as regain spots in case you're not after a certain spot on the map, or in case you weren't aware of the bigger picture and particularly which areas are hotspots or which areas are safe spots. So first on the list is the Control Centre, also known where the demons live. This is pretty much the most sweatiest area in all of Warzone. If you're going here, you have to be prepared for the most insane and chaotic starts. You will have to do and make it best with what you can find. You're not going to get the ideal setup. You are just going to have to do the best you can with the simplest amount of loot, i.e. just one single gun and maybe a couple of plates, because this area just does not have enough loot for the amount of people that land there. And for the most part, if you do make it out of there, which as you can see in the clip, I've got already 10 kills coming out of Control from the start of the game. That is not a normality. There is very few chances you get those opportunities to just time everything right and get the most amount of kills you can. But if you do get it right, the point I'm making is you can come out there with a really hot start and get a lot of kills and start that high kill game off really, really well. But just make sure you are prepared for that chaotic start, because it can quite often go wrong and you can end up having to regain somewhere else, which is why you need to have a mixed variety of landing areas. So the second one I put on this list is the Bioweapons. This is a great landing spot sometimes for high kill games, but for the most part it is plane dependent. If your plane route is passing right over it from the start of the game, then you're likely to get a relatively hot start. However, this area is typically mixed and you can often get a safe start and get a quick loadout and then start rotating fairly consistently. Whenever I land here, me and my friends typically rotate into either chemical or industry, which are right next to these two buildings which have their own shops, which I'll go over in another video, because I wanted to sort of go down into a bit more detail on just a handful of areas in this video, as there are quite a few areas to get through and sort of summarize in general. But for the most part, this area, Bioweapons, is a great area to land and is pretty much a really consistent spot which provides you plenty of loot and has shops right next to you, which means you can go to either or depending on whether there's players there or whether or not you just want to sort of move through the map, get a loadout at another shop and then sort of progress depending on the zone or whatnot. Now, in this general area, I wanted to maintain another shout out for another spot, which is this little boathouse basically in between basically industry and next to bio. This is a really safe spot in my opinion and a great regain spot which has plenty of chests and loot. Also, usually typically quite commonly has the loadout boxes, the ones where you get your actual primary weapons from your first loadout. This is a good spot and typically a consistent area I found to get those chests. But also just generally, you can either then go to the industry shop for a loadout or the bunker building, which is basically located here, for a shop to get your loadout, which then also has an ammo stash and also zip wires to get around the map after you get your loadout, which allows you to sort of start safely or regain, depending on, again, if it's later in the game, and then get back into the map if you're chasing a high kill game, of course. However, if you're trying to play smart and sensible and you're trying to go for the win, then of course you can just play it on the edge of the map and then go wherever the zone says to go later on. Now, as for the fourth spot on this list, this is the factories. This is typically a real hotspot for the most part, somewhere with plenty of floors to loot and usually filled with players, but due to the location and the side of the map, you are able to get a loadout and breathe for a second after you basically cleared it. So you kind of have to just win the starting area, and then you'll have a couple seconds or a minute or so ever to get some loot, get your loadout, get the shop, use the shop, and then sort of go to the next place before you move on to your next area. But if you're going for a slower start and you're a slower player who likes a little more stability at the start of your game and a bit more time in order to organize your loadout and stuff like that, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this area to you. Although the ship right next to the factory is actually a good starting area for you to get a direct loadout or some sort of loot and some money, and then maybe play it at your own pace. However, this general area tends to stay chaotic for the most part, at least in my lobbies, which, look, I'll be honest, isn't always fun. Pretty much for the most part, it's just a real sweatfest, and you have to remain super locked in and just really ready for what's going to happen, because for the most part, it is a sweatfest, and you have to just come across stacks upon stacks of teams, and you have to be ready to fight the absolute sweatiest World Series of Warzone wannabe players that you've ever found, which for the most part, I don't really want to be playing against these sort of people. But look, I'm not going to get into the whole skill-based matchmaking conversation because that could be said or saved for a later date. But for my lobbies, some of these areas can be hotspots, and then it might be different for you guys. I don't know your skill level. Some areas in your lobbies might actually be completely different. I would doubt very much if Control Centre wasn't hot in your lobby. I imagine it's a universal problem, and for the most part, that building is just always hot. But other areas like Factory could be slightly different, again, depending on your skill level, but I'm just sort of giving you from my own experience. Now, as for the fifth and final area I wanted to go over in this video is the living quarters. This area provides plenty of loot, and like Bioweapons, is kind of a mixed feel to it in terms of whether it's hot, whether it's safe or quiet. It just depends on the playing route. In some games, you'll find a lot of teams go there. In some games, it's relatively quiet, but for the most part, it's really open. So what you'll have is you'll have a risky shop outside the location itself, which of course is risky because it's so open, and once you go over to the shop, you kind of only have one building and no cover around you, which is why you need to reconsider if you're going to go to that shop, make sure you do it fast and don't mess around in that area, because you can get killed from the headquarters, the living quarters, you can get killed from pretty much everywhere, so just make sure you're aware of that. But for the most part, it is a mixed area, so if you're looking for kills and the plane is sort of coming out from the south side of the map and is going to go over living quarters almost straight away, then if you're going for a high kill game, that's a good spot to go. However, if it's at the end of a plane, so if the plane's coming from the top of the map, so from Bioweapons, you can relatively have a quiet start, which means you can utilize all of the buildings, get all of the loot, because there's plenty of it due to the amount of chests and buildings there are, and then you can sort of dictate your game because it's kind of centrally located. Although it's sort of at the southern side of the map, it's still kind of centrally with regards to the east and west side of the map. There's still buildings on either side of you, and then for the most part, depending on the playing route, what type of game you're after or what loadout you're using. But also another low-key factor to consider when you're sort of picking your land spot is who you're playing with, regards to solos or quads, and also the skill level of your teammates, whether you're up for the challenge and you want to beat your personal best high kill game and then land at these hot spots that I've just gone through, because this is where you're going to get a good start. Obviously not every single game, but for the most part you can, and if not, focus on the safe spots, rotating early, and if needed, to set up in preparation for that end game so that you guys have the advantage versus other teams that rotate in late. And if you're going for just wins, then play it smart and maybe utilize these areas that are a little more quiet to benefit your games. But anyways, guys, there you have it. That's the full video on the best main landing areas on the map, and as I mentioned, I will be making a second guide in the coming weeks, which will go into detail on the more discreet and sort of low-key areas, essentially the places that don't really have names, or just some other places that aren't relatively hot. But again, I'll provide a mixture of hot spots and some mixed spots, and then a safe spot or two, as well as a regain spot, just to give you guys a variety in case you guys are a different style of player than myself, who likes to go for high kill games and play in more of the chaos. But anyways, guys, there you have it. If you've enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it massively helps me out. And if you've got any tips or tricks about preferred landing areas yourself, or you want to help other newer players out, or you have any suggestions about these videos, then let me know down below in the comments, and I'll get right back to you. I'm Vision SGN. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.